Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Well, let's take a look at the types of aid that are out there. And they're really two main categories. There's humanitarian aid and development aid. So let's take a closer look. Well, this is just a general overview slide so that you can get an idea of the different kinds of aid that we're going to talk about. The first, of course, is humanitarian aid, and that would include food, medical, and emergency aid. Then there's something called development aid or official development assistance, or ODA, which are these are tied to governments that are providing long-term loans. They may provide something called tied aid, which we'll talk about what that means, project aid, technical assistance aid, and commodity aid. And then there's we're going to do a brief little thing on the types of official development aid. There's bilateral and multilateral aid. So there's a little overview. Now let's go take a look at the humanitarian aid and understand a little bit more about what that means. So humanitarian aid is given to alleviate short-term suffering, which may be caused by such events as droughts, wars, natural disasters. And in reality, it can take a number of different forms and usually comes under the heading of grant aid, which is short-term aid provided as a gift. And a gift would mean like something that you don't have to pay back. So this does not contribute to the overall debt of a nation. There are three main forms. One is food aid, medical aid, emergency aid. Food aid is the provision of food from donor countries or money to pay for food, which also includes money given for transport, storage, and distribution. There's medical aid, which is the provision of medical services and provisions from donor countries, as well as money to facilitate medical services. And then there's something called emergency aid. It's the provision of emergency supplies, including temporary shelters, tents, clothing, fuel, heating, and lighting. These are all classified as official development aid, or maybe unofficial aid. But these are the things that kind of hit the headlines. You know, when we hear about a natural disaster somewhere and it's in a developing nation, and all of a sudden, you know, the countries show up with an enormous amount of food, medical, and emergency aid. These are the types of things that we're talking about for humanitarian aid. So let's take a look at development aid, or ODA, which is development aid that is given in order to alleviate poverty in the long run and to improve the welfare of others. And development aid is often referred specifically as official development assistance, or ODA. And the OECD's Development Assistance Committee defines ODA as the following: flows of money to developing countries and multinational and multilateral institutions by official agencies, including state and local governments, or by their executive agencies, which meet the following test. It is administered with the promotion of economic welfare and development of developing countries as its main objective, and it's concessional in character. It contains a grant element of at least 25%. So at least 25% of it, the grant element, simply means that it doesn't have to be paid back. Okay, so the idea of development aid is long-term improvement on the welfare of others. And on the next slide, we're going to take a look at the different kinds of development aid. Here they are: long-term loans, tied aid, project aid, technical assistance aid, and commodity aid. And I just want you to get the idea of what these things are. Check out your course companion for like a deeper understanding of these if this isn't enough information. But long-term loans are usually repayable by the developing country over a period of 20 years. And these loans are known as concessional or soft loans, which are sometimes repayable in foreign currency and sometimes in the local currency. These loans come via official aid or non-official aid organizations. Okay? Tied aid. Tied aid are grants or loans that are given to a developing country, but only on a condition that the funds are used to buy goods or services from the donor country. So this is like, hey, I'll give you money, but you gotta, I live in Spain and you live in Bolivia, and we'll give you some aid, but you have to buy Spanish goods. Okay, that's tied aid. Then there's project aid. Project aid is money given for a specific project, usually a grant that requires no repayment. And these are the types of aids that you usually see for infrastructure, right? So I lived in Nicaragua for a while, and there was a hurricane that went through there, and then they were rebuilding. And the project aid, they rebuilt hundreds of these small little bridges that crossed over these little streams that washed out the rivers. So that's a perfect example of rebuilding. Nicaragua didn't have to pay back the money, and the money was tied specifically to building these small little bridges. Then there's technical assistance aid. Technical assistance aid is sometimes included in the project aid, and there are two main types. One is to raise the level of technology in a developing country, and the other is to raise the level of human capital by training. So that is improving the technology in a particular country and improving the education, really, human capital, economic term, human capital by training people. And the last type of development aid is commodity aid, which are grants, usually grant aid given by countries to increase the productivity of the developing country. And it provides funds usually for the purchase of commodities, including consumer items, intermediate inputs, and raw materials. So these types of aid, commodity aid, technical assistance aid, project aid, tied aid, long-term loans, make up the overall category that's called ODA, or development aid. And lastly, I just want to take a look at the two types of official aid. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing fancy here, but I just wanted to mention it to you. Bilateral aid given directly from one country to another, right? The United States investing in Nicaragua in the bridge example. And then there's multilateral aid, and this is aid given by wealthy nations to international aid agencies such as the World Bank Group's International Bank for Reconstruction. So, and there's another video on this you can check out. But multilateral aid just means that, think about like the World Bank as like a collector of donations from developing nations around the world, and then they are trusted with making the decision of how to invest that aid or to give that aid out to developing nations. All right, I hope you found this video to be helpful, the types of development aid that exist out there. All right, talk to you in a bit.